Welcome back to another episode of Drink Tales, and today we are back on the cheese and meats board, aka Charcuterie. And this month we are going to be pairing with bourbon, particularly Majesty Bourbon. This is a black-owned bourbon made in Georgia,
Kennesaw to be precise.
and we decided not only do we need to taste it, but we also need to see how it pairs up with assorted charcuterie.
Now, is this in conjunction with anything?
Bourbon Day is coming up pretty soon. So I thought I'd connect it,
Okay.
do a bunch of things at once.
So basically telling everybody, hey, there's a bourbon. There's some stuff that goes with it. You probably should pay attention so that you guys know what to drink on this particular day. And while we're at it, Father's Day is coming up soon. So you probably want to figure out what goes with bourbon and get them bourbon and the stuff that goes along with it.
Just a thought, keep that in your mind. Alright, so first we're gonna taste Majesty Bourbon because we've never had it before. Now, I did a little research into it and
It smells like bourbon thus far.
yeah, so far so good. And we're talking tasting notes that we're talking, caramel, honey tasting notes, with a little spiced rye from what I read. Their website even tells you the liquor stores you can find this bourbon in. So far, it's only in Georgia from what I could see, but it's all over the map of Georgia. You can find it. You may not find it in every liquor store, but you can find it in a lot of liquor stores. We didn't go to our usual liquor store to find this bourbon, but we didn't go very far to find this bourbon from where we live.
So got a question for you. How new on the market is this particular product?
I don't even think it's a couple of years old. I think it's maybe 2 years old. So it's brand new on the market. I could be wrong. I can't remember. It does say so on their website, but it's pretty. They're pretty brand new to the market.
Okay. Well, we have our shot glass, probably more than we should be drinking, but
Well, that's fine. We don't have to drink the whole thing because we gotta have something to taste this stuff with.
okay. And all right. Well, let's see what we got here.
That's pretty good. I do get all of those tasting notes. And it's strong too. I forgot how much proof it is. 40% alcohol by volume, 80 proof. So yeah, it'll get you.
I do get that sweetness.
Where's that coming from? Honey? It's vanilla caramel, a vanilla caramel mixture. With a little hint of spice rye, and I get that too.
That's not bad at all.
With that said and done, though, let's get into the board. So this month, since we're pairing with bourbon, I did my research, and last month we had a bit of variety. And though we have a bit of variety this month, things are going to be on the sweet side, which works well with what we're working with as far as bourbon goes. So let's start off right here. Dark chocolate. So dark chocolate is dark chocolate, milk chocolate. Both of them pair very well with bourbon. I chose dark chocolate. Specifically dark chocolate with sea salt. I found this at Aldi's. You can catch this at your local Aldi's, Moser, Roth. But you can, any kind of dark chocolate you can find that you think will be good. They come in bars. I chopped it up for the sake of, for multiple visitors, for the sake of people taking a piece and eating it. So I chopped it up into slivers like that. Mm-hmm. Then we have here almonds. Almonds is another one. Almonds, pecans, any kind of nut is really good. Mm-hmm. Of course, you want to adjust your nut depending on what you're doing with your bourbon. Mm-hmm. Now, I specifically chose an almond that was vanilla and honey because I wanted it to match well with the tasting notes in our bourbon.
Okay.
So these are honey vanilla almonds. I got them from Kroger. They're private selection.
Ooh, bushy.
And next up, we're getting into fruit now.
Now, hold on. Before you go into the fruit, I do have a question about the nut.
Mm-hmm.
Should you specifically... Now, when you're picking your nuts for the pairing, does it necessarily have to be... Do you necessarily have to have a flavored nut, or can you go unflavored?
You don't. Typically unflavored is fine. Mm-hmm. You just want that nut, as one of your proteins, so to speak. Mm-hmm. But I went with the honey and vanilla just specifically because I knew the tasting notes that were going to be in this bourbon.
Okay.
And I wanted it to match well.
That does taste very good, and a very good compliment when you're drinking, especially if you drink your bourbon straight.
Mm-hmm. You eat some of these almonds, you drink your bourbon straight up, meshes well together. Mm-hmm. Now, next up in my research was fruit. Dried fruit came up, and the options they had were dates, and our example here, cranberries. They also had apricots, dried apples, and dried pineapples. Now, since this is just a sample for today, I went with cranberries. I thought that would look good color-wise on our board for today. But if I were going big, if I were doing a huge, like a party that was specifically based around bourbon, I would have done all of those dried fruits together.
Okay.
And mixed them like a trail mix on the board. Or even had them in a... I resisted the urge to put the dried fruit and the nuts in separate little ramekins or bowls. Because I wanted to do that, but I thought that would look boring and would be too much space left on the board. So I spread them out the way that I did.
Okay, so got another question for you. Because this is about your spread, as it were. You said you would have done like a trail mix with the assorted fruits and everything. Would you have added the nuts in that as well? Yes. Mix it all up in there, because it would be like a trail mix. Okay. One more question. When picking your dried fruit, and I guess when picking everything on your board, are you also checking for color as well? Yes, I am. If I'm theming. And I want colors to look well, especially if you're doing like big brain theming, and it's like, okay, this is a fall, I want my board to have a fall theme, and that means not only color wise but the particular foods. Okay. So in our case, this might actually look good for a fall theme. Going with the colors, even though the stuff that we're using, you could either one, get them anytime you want to, or two, get them
you know, when they're in season.
Mm-hmm.
So that brings us to fresh fruit.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in my findings, I also found several fresh fruits.
Mm-hmm.
Fresh apples was on the list. I'm shocked at how well apples pairs well with bourbon, because they recommended dried apples and fresh apples. Our example here today, peaches were also on the list.
Mm-hmm.
I forgot the other fruits, but peaches and apples were two of the big ones.
Mm-hmm.
So I chose peaches. And that's also why I didn't put dried apricots on the list on here, because I could have picked up dried apricots as well, and I wanted to, but I thought the dried apricots and the peach would cancel each other out, so to speak, or would be more redundant. So now we're getting into our meats. Now, for bourbon particularly, you want a mix of salty and spicy meats, or rather, you know, seasoned meats. Salamis, ham. In our case, which I mean, it's fancy ham, but we're going with prosciutto. Something spicy, all cured. You want cured meat because of their savoriness, and you want a savory meat to balance with your bourbon.
Okay.
And last but not least, cheese. Now, one of the cheeses that they mentioned that goes well with bourbon is brie. We used brie last time, but another cheese that they mentioned that I really wanted to go with this is Gouda.
Okay.
And that's what we're using today. This is a smoked Gouda. And I particularly went with a smoked Gouda because I wanted some I guess texture taste wise to juxtapose the bourbon.
Okay.
And you know, like, I know a lot of people who might partake in this might also, this is kind of silly, but you know, not only is your food important with your bourbon, but some people smoke cigars, and they may want to smoke a cigar with a bourbon.
That is true.
That this smoked Gouda would go well with that.
The whiskeys and cigars are quintessential as far as that type of lifestyle. Like, they go hand in hand.
And something I did here that I wanted to wait to address. You see here, I took a peach slice, and I wrapped a piece of the prosciutto around it. I did that because I saw that on the package for some of this prosciutto that we bought, and I thought, that's gonna go well. I bet it tastes well together too. And there you have it, people. That's our board for bourbon.
Now, I do have one more question. And hopefully you can answer this or have an opinion on this. We know this goes well with bourbon. Do we want to partake of this snack, or this board as it were, if we're drinking the bourbon straight or in a cocktail?
I think for a lot of people, this is what I'll say. I think that the standard would be that this is for your bourbon straight up. And here's the other thing too. A lot of people are pairing foods and cheeses and meats depending on the bourbon, the tasting notes in the bourbon, things of that nature. So it just all depends.
By the way, these pecans are really, really good. Like they have no reason to be this good.
That's pretty awesome considering there are almonds, not pecans.
Oh, well, you know.
But yeah, that's pretty much my board for bourbon for this month. Like I said, if I were going big with it, I would have done more of the dried fruits mixed in with particularly those almonds and made it like a trail mix that you can pick up and eat all of them at once. I prefer dark chocolate to milk chocolate in this sense, because I think all of that, I think the dark chocolate adds more of a aesthetic and texture to it. And
especially because you have a lot of browns on this board and a lot of dark colors anyway. I noticed that you kind of have a from darkness to light going on the board. The dark chocolate adds to that from the looks of things.
But yeah, if you want to do it with the cocktail, my only misgivings would be that whatever you would add to the bourbon when making the cocktail might not mesh well with your
flavors that
are on the board.
So if you're making a bourbon cocktail, the flavors that are in that cocktail should probably meld well with what you have on this board.
And don't ask me what kind of cocktail would work with this particular board, because I don't know. I didn't think that far into it.
Okay.
So that'll do it. Oh, optional, just, I didn't use it on my board, but I picked up classic Watercress crackers again. If you just want something, if you just don't want to eat your cheese and your meats without that crunch, and you just want something, just a plain cracker, no salt on it. I think that works best in a lot of situations. I think this type of cracker works best in a lot of pairing situations and in a lot of like hors d'oeuvre situations in total, because while they taste fine alone, without the salt on them, there's no extra flavor to discount anything you would put on the cracker.
Okay.
All right, everyone. So that will do it. Thanks for joining us for another episode of Drink Tales. Be sure to like and subscribe. Hit that bell so you'll know anytime we put up new content. We're going on the Wednesday and the Saturday schedule, of course. I say it every episode, but I have to remind you guys. Be sure to check us out on Instagram. Be sure to check us out on Twitter. And until next time, peace.